Voting in the United States, is it a right or a privilege? Many people say...
Whoa. This is a speech that's supposed to be given by Camille Dixon. Do you have your ID on you?
No, I don't.
Well, I happen to have mine on me, and it shows that I am Camille Dixon. And you see, that is a big problem today in the United States. Many people can impersonate anyone they want if they do not have their ID on them. Now, voting in the United States, is it a right or a privilege? Many people would say it's a right due to the fact that it's protected in our Constitution. However, Jeff Milchin, the founder and executive director of the Reclaim Democracy website, stated in his August 8, 2005 online article, Beyond the Voting Rights Act, Why We Need a Constitutional Right to Vote, that in its 2000 ruling, Alexander versus Mineta, the court affirmed the district court's interpretation that our Constitution does not protect the right of all citizens to vote, but all qualified citizens to vote. He also then states, as a result, voting is not a right, but a privilege granted or withheld at the discretion of local and state governments. What exactly does that mean for us? We are not guaranteed the right to vote simply because we live in this country. Voting is a privilege and can have consequences if people who are not allowed to vote do go and vote. I want you to be on board with some form of photo identification requirement in every state to legally vote. My name is Camille Dixon. I'm over the age of 18 with no criminal background, and I am a registered voter. Let me begin with the consequences of allowing voters with no photo identification to go to the polls on election day. There are many different things to look out for when not having photo identification and casting votes, but they all turn back to the same thing: manipulating votes. There are dead people voting, illegal citizens voting, casting ballots twice, and even underage citizens voting. To elaborate, these ways of voting are possible by people using the names and home addresses of citizens who have either been dead for years or their citizenship status hasn't been checked in years. And the way that this happens is they use their simple form of identification, which is just their names and home addresses in some states. Also, using the absentee ballot vote and then showing up on election day with no photo identification is another way to commit fraud in some states. State Representative Daryl Metcalf, a Butler County Republican who chairs the State Government Committee, said in a September testimony that there are several problems with the state's voter registration system. He continues with saying, "We've got a lot of integrity issues that need to be addressed." Next, let's look at the states that require photo identification, the states that do not, and what they do to address it. There are 18 states that require photo identification, and here are just a few of them: Texas, Florida, and Virginia. There are 14 states that require simple identification, which are just your name and your home addresses, and a few of them are West Virginia, Ohio, and Kentucky. Last and most importantly, the states that do not require any form of identification are North Carolina, Maryland, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, Massachusetts, Vermont, Maine, Illinois, Minnesota, Nebraska, New Mexico, Wyoming, Nevada, California, and Oregon. And to be concise, there are 16 of them. On here, we have in the blue, the ones that require a valid photo identification, and the red, the ones that require a non-photo identification, but the ones that show your name and your home address. And the ones that are not outlined are the ones that have no form of identification. Now, when you have no form of identification, there are some stipulations. Like if you're a first-time voter, you might have to show just simple identification, which is just your name and your home address, or if you haven't voted in 4 years, you might have to do the same. Keeping those states in mind, let us talk about the reasoning behind not needing or wanting those laws. There have been many people stating that the cost of photo identification targets minorities, which then in turn decreases voter turnout. So basically what is being said is that the photo identification cannot be afforded by minorities, and thus they are unable to participate in voting if that is what is being required. However, Fred Lucas of the Heritage Foundation's Daily Signal wrote the following in a 2014 article titled, "Voter Identification Suppression of Minority Turnout Not Proven," study says. He then says, "There is no definitive relationship between tough laws requiring voters to present identification and a drop-off in Hispanics, Black, and other minorities. Voter identification is just a way to properly secure votes in an election, and requiring the ID has nothing to do with race or economic status." things in the United States that you are required to present a photo identification to do. You are required to have a photo identification to purchase cigarettes or alcohol, to buy a gun, to get a marriage certificate, to buy controlled substances, and even when applying to most jobs. And here we have pictures of some of the things that you have to do. And see, Donald Trump, the President of the United States, tweeted saying, "As Americans, you need identification, sometimes in a very strong and accurate form, for almost everything you do, except when it comes to the most important thing, voting for the people who run your country. Push hard for voter identification." If the President feels this way, I don't understand why it's so hard and so big of a debate for everybody else. Also, if you need photo identification for almost anything in the country, why is it too much to ask for photo identification to vote? All that the photo identification is going to do is protect the votes of each and every American in every election. In conclusion, requiring photo identification in all states would help to respect the integrity of all elections and help to eliminate the repercussions of allowing just anyone to vote. Once again, I say, voting is a privilege in our country. It should be held to the utmost respect, and every citizen should be held accountable for their vote. Our country is a democracy for a reason. Imagine us having absolutely no say in who gets into office due to manipulating votes. Your votes will soon not count if everyone is just being able to vote willy-nilly. Again, my name is Camille Dixon. This is for Professor Pierman, class CST-100, and that was my persuasive speech.